What you can't see can still harm you unless you know how to move with high-level protection. Some challenges don't come from poor choices. They may come from spiritual interference that you didn't ask for but must respond to. And Ifa gives us the ability to do so with powerful precision. In this live stream, you'll learn how protection Akose works, when it's needed, and how to align with the forces that guard your path. But this isn't about fear. It's about reclaiming your power with divine guidance. So let's step into the wisdom of Ifa and uncover how protection Akose and other spiritual remedies can safeguard your path. We're going live in just a few seconds, so stay close and we'll get started. Greetings, guys. Thank you all for joining and showing up. I see you all coming in, especially on IG right now, even so on YouTube. So we're only on these two platforms today. So guys, if you are watching us live, if you're here right now, definitely feel free to go ahead and drop in your questions, your reflections in the chat as we go along. And also, if you're watching the replay, for those of you all who don't catch the live, be sure to type replay in the comment section and let me know what stood out to you the most. So we are about to get started. Greetings, Asaju. Thank you as always for joining. Our Odessa is here. Perfect. Everybody is in the chat. So we got a deep, extensive live stream today. I got so many questions, so many amazing questions from you guys, and we are just going to jump into it, right? So I'm going to cover most of your questions as I go throughout. Then I also have a special place where I'm going to cover some at the end because they didn't quite fit into some of the categories that I had planned. So we're going to get to that as well. Greetings, Thomasine. Thank you for joining. All righty, guys. So let's look at first the foundations of protection Akose. So protection Akose, any form of Akose, as I always say, is spiritual medicine. These are the things that we use to help us to get in alignment. Protection Akose obviously is going to shield us from harm, danger, spiritual attacks, things like that. And we're going to really dig into some of the things that go along with this particular notion, how it can shield you, who should be taking it, etc. It's important to know that protection itself, the notion of protection, but especially protection Akose, is at the core of all forms of spiritual medicine, no matter what you're taking it for. So it could be the prosperity, like we talked about last week, or the love, which I plan to cover next week, or even so the health Akose. Protection is at the root of pretty much any type of ritual work that you're going to do in the tradition. Okay, so it's just a regular part of maintaining your energetic balance, because we absolutely all must be protected. We have to do that in order to stay in alignment. So as with any other form of Akose, you can go ahead and get it without going through a full reading and seeing, like, do I need this or what have you. In many cases, your owl can just do a checking or what have you for you. With that being said, I do want to say how we work. So if the people already working with us, our established clients, our ELA members, they come directly to us and just say, hey, I need Akose for what have you, and then I will does the checking to see what's best for them in their particular situation. Now, if it's somebody that's not working with us, obviously you would definitely have to go through the route of establishing that connection, which would look like you getting either a spiritual investigation or a full-on Ifa divination. Greeting, Teddy Blanks. Greetings. Thank you for joining. So that's what it looks like from our end. I wanted to state that so that people don't think that you just, send me a DM and say, hey, what kind of protection Akose do I need? Unless you're already working with us. If that's the case, for sure, we are always happy to oblige those individuals that we know we work with really well. So I do want you guys to understand, when it comes to the notion of protection Akose, this is not about fear. This is not about being paranoid. Oh, somebody's watching me, somebody's trying to do something to me, etc., etc. But it is about recognizing that adverse spiritual forces are always at play. So we always have to guard ourselves against them. For some people, it is definitely more prevalent or prominent than for other individuals, but everybody, every single one of us deals with adverse, negative, evil forces, however you want to say it. Every one of us is no limit on there. All right. The purpose of protection work as a whole, which would be inclusive of the Akose, but also other things like the Ebo, like the ambulance and things like that. And I'm going to get into how they all work together and what purpose each one serve. But every form of those are designed to reduce harm, to redirect danger out of your path. But it also does not remove your life challenges. It's not like you just take a crochet, you put on some ambulance, you do Evo, and you have no more problems at all. That's not how it works. And it definitely doesn't override your destined path. So you still got to live in the earth and deal with all of the things that all of us have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Greetings, 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 Lena. Blessings to you as well. So do keep that in mind. Greetings to everybody too who is joining on IG. I see you guys coming in and I see you saying hi. I can't put you on the screen, but definitely glad you all showed up. So now we're going to transition into some common signs of spiritual attacks. These are just common signs. They can show up in so many different ways. Disclaimer though, before I get started, because some signs of spiritual attack do resemble health conditions, right? So some health conditions are from natural causes, some of them are from spiritual attacks. You don't know until you check. So you want to get a divination, or it's full-on EDAFA, or either spiritual investigation, something like that, to determine which is appropriate, or seek out medical attention to determine the root cause of the issue. So it's not like it's just, I have this problem and it is, a spiritual attack that I need to go and take some Akose for. So definitely experiencing sudden illnesses, especially without a root cause, the doctors can't figure out what's going on with you, or something just comes up and it doesn't make sense, right? You're generally overall healthy. You haven't had any major problems. And then all of a sudden, you just fall ill. Definitely something to consider. If you're having sleep disturbances, inability to rest, that is a really strong sign that there may be some evil forces, some malevolent energetic forces that are in your path that you definitely want to take care of, because you don't want anything negative staying around you, if at all possible, not being able to penetrate you. I should say it that way, because there's evil around us all the time. But it's about whether that evil can absolutely penetrate you, okay? Feeling constantly tired, even when you've gotten rest, sufficient rest, okay? You're sleeping 8 hours a night. You're doing all of the things that you should be doing. You have enough minerals and vitamins and so forth and so on within your system, and you should be well rested, but you're not. And you're not having any other type of health conditions that would say this is the reason why you're dealing with this extreme level of fatigue or tiredness all the time. Confusion, irritability, emotional instability. Now, this is kind of general, but it can indicate that somebody is under spiritual attack. Of course, it could be a health condition. It could be because you're not resting properly. Again, you always want to check. Definitely, if you are constantly being presented with different opportunities, but they keep falling through without any type of explanation. It's like you're at that path, things look like they're just about to head down the right way for you. You've been preparing for it. Everything is in order, and then it just falls through, it just slips through your fingers, and this is consistently happening, that is a sign that you may be under some type of spiritual attack, and you definitely want to go ahead and get that checked out. Definitely, there are situations where it's just normal, where things don't work out, and that can actually be a good thing sometimes. But if this is consistently happening to you, that's a sign that something is awry in the spiritual realm, and you need to check it out. Always experiencing conflicts or chaos, things like that, just suddenly arriving, especially when it's happening in multiple areas of your life. Like everything just seems to be going bad all at once. That is a sign that you may be dealing with some type of spiritual attack. Maybe even so, you just feel like you're unsafe. You feel like something or somebody is watching you. You feel exposed for no clear reason. And you're not necessarily the type of person that deals with major anxiety, because that's another thing, right? If you are just an anxious person overall, it may not be a spiritual attack. But if you are, it definitely could be a spiritual attack. You're saying, how do you check it out? Yes. So you check this out through 2 means. So you can definitely go and get a full-on EFI reading. If you don't know what's going on, you can get the full EFI reading. If you're already working with somebody, I would say, go to your, I want to say, check this out, I'm dealing with this. If you don't want to do a full EFI reading at that time, you can do a quick spiritual investigation to say, these are my problems. Let's see what's going on. And they can tell you from there. Also, just feeling blocked, stuck. You don't know what it is, but you just feel like something is standing in your way, right? You just feel like you're moving through a fog. You don't know exactly what's going on. Your life has changed, and it's just, not in the rightful place that it should be in based on your previous life circumstances. Even so, like if this is kind of your whole life where you've been feeling blocked, stuck, like you're walking through a fog, absolutely you should check that out, because there could be some generational things going on there that you've been dealing with from such a young age. So you want to get rid of that too. So as we move along, guys, tell me, have you all noticed any of the signs that I mentioned here? You felt like you were under attack? If so, let me know what's going on. So you're asking me, am I in Florida? No, I am in Arizona, Goodyear, Arizona. I'm on the West Coast, guys. So how are they initiated? So some of you all are like, how can people attack me and things like that? So many different ways. Definitely, it can start with witchcraft, sorcery, black magic. That's the type of evil or negative spell binding that most people are familiar with. It happens frequently. It's not that everything that you go through, somebody else is doing it to you, but these attacks do occur. They are real, and so it can happen to you. So you're saying here, it feels like I keep getting setbacks as soon as the ball gets to rolling for my life. Things are going good. Yeah, it could be a sign of a spiritual attack. You definitely want to check that out, because that's very, very common for people who are dealing with such things. People try to make you think you crazy, gaslighting you, things like that for surety. Gaslighting too, I'm happy you brought that up, because that could definitely be a telltale sign, especially when you're dealing with somebody, because gaslighters oftentimes do perpetrate spell work, and it's not always intentional. Not like they're going to somebody and saying, like, do this spell work, or they do a ritual themselves. Sometimes it's through the way they manipulate you and the tactics that they use. Those are spell binding devices in and of themselves. So be careful if you're dealing with somebody who is gaslighting you. You said it happens frequently with you for the last 15 years consistently. My dear, you definitely want to go ahead and get that checked out to see what's going on with you. So I was asked this question specifically about verbal curses. I think it's the Dabi, right? The pronunciation may be wrong there, but this is basically when you've wronged a person, right? And they legitimately, intentionally speak a curse over your life because you did something wrong to them. Right. So this is different than the witchcraft that I just talked about, or the juju and things like that. Because people do that as well. That's not always justified. However, this type of curse, the adabi, is absolutely justified and it can penetrate you. That's not to say that every time somebody like speaks negatively over your life, or they intentionally try to curse you by saying something to you, that it is going to happen. This can occur though, and it often occurs with people who have divine ashe, right? So there are some people, they may not even be intentionally trying to do so. This type of curse, it is intentional, but there are some situations where people have divine ashe and they can speak things over your life. And if you cause that person harm, or if you cause any type of problems for them, that can come to reality, right? And definitely if they're doing it intentionally, if they know that they have their power, then it can happen and it can negatively impact your life, especially if they're holding deep level resentment and unforgiveness towards you. And it can stay for a long time. It's not like, it just goes away. So you may have to do some work to protect yourself against that. So you're saying you're not the type to even deal with people to have even a wrong person. Where does Reiki come in with these situations in life? So Reiki, I'm not very familiar with it. I know it's supposed to be like the energetic healing and things like that. I don't work with it. I've never done Reiki. I'm not against it. It's just not something that has ever interested me personally. So I would encourage you to talk to somebody who knows more about that particular aspect. So if anybody else knows the answer to that, like how Reiki could help somebody out with spiritual attacks, please feel free to chime in the comment section. So when it comes to other things, somebody just being envious of you, having those negative intents towards you, somebody could project what they call the evil eye against you. They just look on you and wish you some ill will, and it could come to fruition. And I know a lot of you all are probably saying, well, how can this be? Somebody just look at me or say something to me and it comes to fruition. Well, that's also going to depend a lot on you, like your level of protection, what you're doing in your life. If you're open to these types of things, they can penetrate you, and they can penetrate you fairly easily if you are not protecting yourself. Thus the conversation that we're having today about the protection of Akose, because these things are absolutely real. So when you're violating your taboos, that's a way that you open yourself up, guys, to spiritual attacks. You're violating those personal, familiar, communal taboos, etc. Yeah. So you're going to put yourself in a really bad position. So you definitely do not want to do that. Greetings, alien black girl. Thank you for joining us. You do not want to do those types of things, guys. Unclean, or being in unclean or spiritually charged environment. So if you're in an environment where somebody is constantly enacting evil or negative spell binding work, that could come off on you as well. So be careful about that, about being in those types of environments, or even environments where there's always a lot of violence and negativity, because that's also a form of spell work, even though they may not be intentionally saying, I am perpetuating this evil and negativity here. If it's already going on, that energy is in the air and it's in that space. So it's best to stay away from those types of environments. Okay, Teddy, you are answering here about the Reiki. Thank you for this. So he is saying Reiki is a very powerful route to go, but Ifa medicine and or Ebo is the most powerful. Thank you for that. Don't know about it. I would imagine that it is good, but I'm about Ifa. I'm about tradition, so that's my thing. Reniverse, thank you for joining as always, my dear. Excited to be here. Excited to have you guys, all of you guys. So definitely try your best, if possible, to stay away from such environments. I know it's not easy for everybody, right? So there are some things that you have to go through, you have to deal with, depending on where you live and where you work, or even where you have to, the areas that you have to pass by to get to those locations where you go to school and things like that. So it may not always be possible to stay away from those environments. That's why you definitely want to protect yourself. You're saying here we shouldn't have to live on this earth and worry about these types of things. I agree with you 1,000%, right? I'm constantly saying that myself, but it is what it is, and we got to deal with what it is while we're here. That's the only resolution that I've come to at this point in my life. So, yeah. Also, your inability to even set and maintain boundaries, and this may not even seem like it has anything to do with you, dealing with curses and attacks and things like that, but it absolutely does. Because number one, if you're dealing with a situation where it's hard for you to set and maintain those boundaries, you're dealing with somebody who is manipulative, most likely, right? So if somebody is always trying to urge you to not maintain your boundaries or set boundaries with them, and if they get upset if you do, then you're obviously dealing with somebody who has bad intentions towards you. And whenever you allow them to continuously manipulate you, you're opening up a doorway for that negative energy to penetrate you. Whether, again, it's like them doing actual spell work or not, it is a form of spell binding. Whether they're sitting down and putting together some type of potion or lighting the candle and saying, some type of incantations, just the very nature of you being involved in these situations and the very nature of their personality that they would try to manipulate somebody, that's a form of spell binding. So you want to be careful there. And there are ways to overcome that. We're going to get to that with the Akose, because I know that's a challenge for some people. It's been a challenge for me in my own life to deal with setting and maintaining boundaries at certain points. So, there are ways to overcome that and close those doors, shut those types of things down. Negative self-initiated spell work. So if you are the type that's constantly doing rituals and doing incantations and things like that, using spiritual tools to initiate work for either selfish reason or for harmful intent against other people, yeah, you're going to cause that energy to come back on you. Whether somebody does return to sender type of ritual or not, you're inviting the energy back to you. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Shake. How do you say it? Shake him ra, I think. I hope I said it right. But greetings to you. Greetings to everybody else who is coming in as well on IG and anywhere else you're coming in, whether you're saying hi or not. Just greetings to everybody. So, negative self-talk is another one as well. So you're constantly walking around speaking negatively of yourself. You are initiating spell work against yourself. You're cursing yourself. You're inviting in just so many negative forces in your life, and that is not something that you want to do. Alafia, Orisha, Boomy X, greetings, 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 all. So those are some of the ways, not the only way by any means. There are other ways as well. One last one, forgot. So definitely to major life transitions. It may not seem like it, even something good. You're about to move. You're about to in a relationship that's a good thing for you, right? Or even so going into some deeper ritual work and things like that can cause stress. And anything good in your life actually is going to invite negativity, because there are forces that want to destroy it. There are people that want to destroy it. You're saying the first time you called me live, okay, whatever you speak, I listen. You have much wisdom to share. Thank you so much, and thank you for showing up. I'm grateful that you were able to catch it live today as well. So yes, there are so many different things, guys. Understand, you don't have to believe in this in order for it to work. Because there's a lot of times people will come and say these types of things to me, especially people that aren't into the traditions. Usually not people who actually believe in it. It's people, they see my page and they're like, oh, this stuff doesn't work. It doesn't work unless you believe in it, or unless you dealing with it yourself. Somebody can come and do something against you, so forth and so on. That is so not true. Okay. People can and absolutely do initiate negative spell work against people all the time, whether they are in tradition or not, because it actually happens to people who are practicing Christianity, Islam, so forth and so on. So you're saying, how does Ifa really work from start to finish? So that's a loaded question that I would have to cover in a whole different episode, because we're focusing on the protection of Akose. But I am going to get into some components of how Ifa works from the perspective of the Akose itself, protection of Akose. But like everything we do here is basically saying how Ifa works, how the system works, and how we can benefit from it. So stay tuned. You're saying too here, there's always a polar opposite rather than a good or bad. So yeah, everything is on a spectrum. You are right about that. I really don't necessarily use the term good or bad, but there's a spectrum. So it's something on one side, it is something on another side, and then there's the things that are in the middle, which is balanced. That's where we want to be, but everything falls along the spectrum, and so you got to deal with it in your life, and you got to deal with what other people are bringing into your life. You say you believe in yin and yang to be in being balanced. Yes, that's what all major spiritual systems teach. It is about balance, okay? Being kind of on that middle ground. Nobody can 100% be there, but they can. You're saying rebuking and casting down. I guess you're talking about from the Christian perspective there. I mean, and I can say, even coming from a perspective of somebody who practiced Christianity, you can absolutely speak against negative forces, but you can't speak against all of them. Depends on what level they're operating on. But it is not something that, like, the average Christian person would think that all you got to do is rebuke the devil, cast it out, and so forth and so on, because that's not always the case either. So Lance, definitely you caught the live. Thank you. Appreciate you always for showing up. So yeah, there's absolutely so many things out there that we got to keep in mind. Now, types of protection work in Ifa. So there are multiple levels to this. It's not just the Akose. We're going to get to that. That's primarily what we're going to talk about here. But I also want to talk about some other things, because it's a layered approach for sure. You're saying, yes, speaking to that power of the tongue. Yeah, and there is power in the tongue, right? And that's the same notion of when we say in Ifa, you have divine ashe. That's when somebody can speak, and they can speak good or bad over your life. And so when somebody does have that notion, that ability to just speak and use their tongue as a sword, if it were, from a Christian perspective, they have to use it wisely. They have to, be able to use it for, hopefully they should be using it wisely. I'll say it that way, because so many people use it negatively, but you can use it for either or situation. It's not just one way. It's a plane coming near me, guys, so I hope you can still hear me pretty good. Now, with Ifa, you're usually going to look at three major forms of protection. That's the charms, the Ebo, the Akose. When we're talking about actual ritual work, definitely you can pray, you can live a good life, Iwa Pele. All of those things are also forms of protection, and I'm going to talk about that too. But we're talking about those higher dimensions of protection work. We're talking about these types of devices. So the charms, amulets, lekis, they are used to create shields, powerful forces that block, that repel the danger, maintain your energetic balance, etc., etc. And they can come in so many different forms. Pretty much any Orisha is going to be tied to the dynamic of protection at some level. Of course, there are specific Orishas that operate in this capacity, and I'm going to get to those later on. But anytime you're wearing elekis, right? So, of course, I had to wear a gown today because I'm talking about protection and crochet, but I also have on issue, same dynamic there. And I'm gonna actually get deeper into these two and some other Orishas related to this dynamic as well. So when you wear these devices, activated devices, not talking about going and just picking up some lekis out of the store. I'm talking about something that has been blessed, that has been consecrated. You have a high level of protection with you in different aspects of your life, depending on what area that particular Orisha covers. So you're saying, Ashe, I'll keep the ego away when you receive big blessings because you're spiritually aware of the possibilities of loss. Okay, you were talking to somebody else. Yes. But that is a good point. And thank you for making it. Like, you definitely want to be careful even when you're in a good space in life, because that's actually, I think, invites more so than just the regular, dynamics of somebody bringing evil. Because whenever something good is happening, that's the time we often get excited, we feel invincible, so forth and so on. And so we sometimes let our guards down. People love to talk when they get things, and I'm constantly saying, be careful with this oversharing. You see this all the time on social media. You get a new house, you get a new job, you make a certain amount of money, and you see people flock to social media and say, oh, I just got this, or I just did that. You are doing nothing but inviting evil forces into your life when you do those types of things. So be careful. Now, these particular tools, as I was just talking about, the amulets, the charms, the elekis and things like that, they can help you to navigate volatile environments, help promote peace, stability in your life on a regular basis, harmonious relationships, etc. Just depending on what they are, for what orishas they're connected to, right? Because they are for connection and protection. Now, the elbow, that's the sacrifice. You're giving something in exchange for something else. That's their energy exchange. And you're doing this to prevent or either resolve disturbances that you've already encountered, or you're going to prevent the encounters that could possibly be coming up. That happens a lot of times when you get an Ifa reading and it says, this situation is about to present itself in your life. So you need to give elbow to this particular Orisha to prevent it, or either so it doesn't have as great of an impact in your life as it possibly could. So you said, I've been convinced elekis don't work in the way people think. They just represent the Orisha that governs the person. Depends on if the elekis are activated or not. So again, if you just go and buy some elekis out of the store, yeah, you just buy something to represent an energetic force. But if you are buying consecrated or blessed elekis, which means there are sacrifices made, there are invocations made to get the essence of that energetic force into the device, so that energy is closer to you whenever you wear it, then yes, they are activated and they work very well in that regard. So I don't know who you're talking to, and it depends on their level of knowledge and understanding of the tradition. So I'm not going to argue with. I don't argue with anybody when it comes to their level of knowledge and understanding of where they are. How does Ifa tell one what's about to happen? Excuse me. That happens whenever you get an Ifa reading. So full on Ifa divination. If there are things that are going to come up that you need to be aware of, so it's based on what's going on in your situation at that particular time. Everybody is different, so it's not like every time you get a reading, it's going to tell you this is going to happen in your future. It just depends on your particular circumstances, but it does happen quite a bit. Like, you need to avoid this or you need to be careful of that, because certain situations, could come up. Death is around you, sickness is around you, or your family, etc. You said, I enjoy your page, by the way, very informative. Thank you. Thank you. I am so happy that it is helpful for you guys. That's what I definitely aim to do, is to bring information to the forefront. Now, Ebo does address spiritual attacks, right? If they're coming up or if they're already present. You can also address karmic patterns, so things that you've been doing or things that your family has been doing. Ebo is about that balance that we were talking about earlier that you guys mentioned. It's about bringing you in balance into that middle ground, and you stay that way by walking in Iwa Pele, by adhering to your taboos and things like that. Okay. Now, Akose again is spiritual medicine. It's used when you have those deeply rooted spiritual attacks, something that's ongoing, somebody that is constantly trying to, or currently, I should say, trying to attack you and bring evil or negativity your way. There is especially useful when, charms and evil are not enough to get the job done, and that can happen sometimes. Okay. It can target individual issues or generational issues as well, depending on what's going on in your life. So I got some comments here. I really love and appreciate this talk. I wish I could stay longer. You're doing amazing. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Check us out on YouTube because it will be there later, after the live is finished. So I'm gonna keep it up. Hopefully everything goes well with the technology. It'll be there. Okay. He said, I've seen many people wear Lakis and still stay in negative situations. So Lakis do not stop you from your free will, right? Yes, there are plenty of people who wear Lakis and they go into negative situations. They live a negative life. They don't walk in Iwa Pele. A lot of times people do, especially common people who don't know about the tradition. They just hear about it. They go, I'm going to go get some Lakis to protect myself. And I still want to live any kind of way that I want to live, involving themselves in criminal activity, things like that. That's not what Lakis are for. That's not what Akose is for. And I'm going to get into that. That's not what any of these devices for in Ifa. All right. Yes, as I always say, the spiritual technology can work either way, with the right or the left hand. But a trained specialist is supposed to use it for good, all right, not for evil, though they know how to use it for evil. So yes, there are people who come to Ifa and similar traditions to get work done to protect them when they are involved in negative or evil work. But that is not what it's meant for. So if you don't just go and get a coach, you don't just go and get Lakis and say, I'm going to just do whatever I want to do and think everything's going to be okay, because that's not what it's for. He said, do you think Ifa has an indeed situation right now? I don't know. And personally, I do not speak on situations that I am not personally involved with. You would never hear me speak on things like that. Don't know. I wish him the best in whatever situation he's going through, and I hope that he walks in balance. That's all I can say. He said, I had only Lakis once, engaged in something very taboo on accident, ended up offending Iyami. It was no joke. Absolutely. Thank you for that example, Lance, because that is exactly what I'm talking about. These types of things, any type of device is not to be used. It's not like I'm just going to put it on, do whatever I want to do. Yeah, so you're inviting negativity in your life anytime you are not walking in Iwa Pele. You're not observing your taboos or communal taboos or general taboos of the tradition itself. So no, that's not how we use these devices. So just to kind of give a recap here and like a firmer example, so you can think about these devices in this way. So I'm talking about like charms, the amulets, the Lakis, and things like that. So that would be like you living in maybe like a gated community, right? And you have a security system in your home. That's elevated protection versus just locking your door. Just locking your door at night will be similar to maybe just praying, right? General prayers type of things. Not that it doesn't work, right? But it is not that higher level guard, and it's you still leave a space for you to be penetrated. But the charms, the amulets, the lakeys are like, you're going to move into this gated community security system where you lessen the threat. Not again that it disappears, but you lessen it because it's harder for people to penetrate more so than just having a locked door, especially if you live in a neighborhood that's prone to break-ins and security risks, right? So the EBO, on the other hand, will be more like, okay, you still live in that gated community, you still have that security system. Now we have an armed night guard that's at the gate every night, so that, because that's the most vulnerable time for attacks is at nighttime. So then we have that security guard, that personnel that's standing there who is armed, who can fight off somebody who does try to come attack. And we also have these motion activated security cameras now. So now we can see things at a higher level. All right. Akose, that will be like having a 24, adding to everything we just said, but also having a 24/7 elite security system in place. So they're around the clock securing the building. We got infrared surveillance, right? Biometric identification for people coming through the gate, etc. It's a layered approach, a tiered approach. So at every single level, we're going higher and higher in guarding and protecting ourselves. I hope that's a good example for you guys and you understand, kind of how those dynamics work together, right? So we want to use as much as we possibly can. So let's look at protection, purpose, personal integrity, because this is important too. We're talking about, especially Akose, because there are some really, really powerful Akose out there that's available for protection, and you have to be very, very careful when you're taking certain remedies, okay? Protection, this is a necessity for our lives. This is the world that we live in, guys. It's, I think it was Tiffany, you said earlier, absolutely. I wish we didn't have to live in this world either, right? With all of these different problems. But this is the reality. And in order for us to move forward and live the way we need to live in peace and in calm, we got to do what it takes, right? Especially depending on where we are in our lives and who we are in our lives, because I'm going to get to that as well. Thank you so much, Orisha Boomy X. You said great examples there for sure. So this is just part of what we have to do. You said great example using unlocking doors and alarm systems as well. Thank you. The layered approach is crucial. It is. So, but understand, when you're using protection, this is not to be weaponized. You do not use it to harm other people or for vengeful purposes and things like that, unethical reasons, because sometimes people do try to come and use Akose and these other devices as we were just talking about. It's people that they are already involved in criminal type of activities for a living, right? And so they want to come and get some Ilekis or some Akose or do EBO or what have you to protect them in that. And that's not what these things are for. It's not what they're designed for. So be careful in that. Like, if somebody tells you that this is what it's for, that is not correct. It's not accurate. All right. Again, can they do some work to help you out when you're trying to involve yourself in some things that you shouldn't be involved in? Yeah, but you're also going to reap the repercussions of that later on. So definitely be careful. Relying solely on any type of protection is not correct if you're not going to address your own actions, your character, your behavior as well, right? So you can have all of these things. If you're not walking in Iwapele, if you're not trying to adhere to the tradition as it was meant to be, you can definitely encounter problems. You probably will encounter even more so problems. Tiffany, you said, okay, if I was on my own island with no civilization, would I still have to worry about spiritual attacks? Absolutely, because spiritual forces still inhabit the astral realm. Likewise, if you're on your own island by no civilization, I guess you mean other humans. but I'm sure that there will be animals there because there would have to be some other life in order to sustain your life. You got to have something to eat. You got to have, plants and other constituents around in order for you to live. So still, spiritual attacks are going to occur. Physical attacks are going to occur, right? So you got to protect yourself still. Right. I know that was a hypothetical example. I just realized that your last name was Combs. Is that why you asked about puppy? That's cute. But thank you for the question, my dear. So now I'm going to transition into some Orishas and how, again, they work together with that dynamic. Like, why do we work with the Orishas? We're going to take the Akose. What do the Orishas do for us, right? So first, we're going to start with warrior Orishas here. But, just to kind of start the conversation here, understand, again, like I said before, every Orisha operates in protection at some level. Though there are specific warrior Orishas, and there are also guardian Orishas that oversee our safekeeping. We're going to focus on the warriors there first. You say, okay, what if I was a vegetarian, no animals and no other people? Even if you're a vegetarian, the animals would still be around. Animals still serve a very important purpose in our ecosystem. You have, some animals that keep away certain fungi, certain bacteria, so forth and so on. So absolutely. You said free your daddy, did he? That's cute. So yeah, I mean, I get your point. It's still there, like, except, and I don't even know what I can't even say in the astral realm because I've never been there. I, have not transitioned yet, so I can't speak for what would happen thereafter. But there's also there's spiritual forces around, right? So even if we want to say it's just you and nothing else on the earth, there's still things in the astral realm. Thus, you could still experience a spiritual attack. But going back to the conversation, so you do have those spirits that serve, the Orishas rather, that serve as warriors, that serve as guardians. When we're talking about warrior Orishas, these are the ones that are going to actively confront, neutralize threats. They act just like a warrior would in the physical realm. They fight on your behalf. Those battles, those conflicts, injustices, they even so give you the courage and the energy to fight whenever necessary, and fight in two lanes as well. So it's not always about physically attacking something. It's also that notion of diplomacy, because that's part of war as well. So with that being said, I'm going to transition into Ogun because he is known as, one of the more prominent warrior Orishas. So Ogun is going to help you with the spiritual and the physical protection. He's clearing those paths, moving things out of your way, the obstacles and challenges and so forth. He can defend you against harm, okay? He's specifically prominent when we're talking about matters of technology because he oversees that. So even if you're having issues with technological attacks, and that happens, right? Especially in today's world because we're more so technologically inclined than ever before. Yes, he can help you out with that. Other Orishas can as well. So I definitely don't want to say it's just one domain, even though we have Orishas that operate within specific domains. Other Orishas can help you out in different ways depending on your circumstance, okay? Also, when it comes to, tools, industrial tools, because he rules that area. Transportation, so you're taking a trip, right? You could be on the road, a road trip, plane, what have you. Ogun rules those areas as well. I've talked to you guys about this before. When I go out, I won't say anytime. Sometimes when I'm going out, sometimes I just feel like, I need to grab, Ogun and put Ogun around my neck. I always wear the ones here, but sometimes I just feel this energy. I want Ogun around my neck today, so I put on the necklace. Normally, pretty much anytime I go out, I'm going to put on my Egria Ilakis, but sometimes I just feel this, and whenever I do, I go out, and no lie, is always some kind of motion on the road where it's like a near accident for me, and I just dodge it and I say, okay, I understood now why I wanted to put on those Ogun Ilekis. That has happened to me. And it happens. Something I would say Ogun is the one that it'll happen most often. Usually, I don't just feel like I gotta wear, this around my neck today. But sometimes I do with Ogun, as I just said. You're saying, does astral projection have anything to do with Ifa, or could you do both together to see a better vision? So astral projection does absolutely happen in Ifa ritual. It's not the type of astral projection that we're seeing in the new age religions or spiritual practices or what have you, where people just astral project just because they want to, right? No, that's actually a part of some of the ritual processes where it happens just as a part of the ceremony that's going on at that time. But it's not done for showcasing and showboating and things of that nature. Psychedelics and Ifa together, can it make the divine connection stronger? So I'm not going to speak on the notion of psychedelics here. I don't use them. I know about them. I know, probably you talking about like what is it, ashwa, I forget how you say the word, ashwagandha or something like that. Those things people take, I don't know about them personally because I don't take them. I've never taken them. Nothing against them. You would have to ask somebody who is taking those things. And particularly if you want to know how they work with practicing Ifa, you would have to ask those people about that if they practice both. Shango. Shango is another Orisha that's connected to that energy of warrior type of strength or what have you. So Shango is the Orisha of divine justice. He especially helps those who are wrongfully attacked, falsely accused. He works very effectively in the legal system, right? So even so, public shame, because there's some narrative there about how he went through that, and he can help people out with that area a lot. Leadership, because he was a king, and so all of those dynamics are very, very prominent when it comes to Shango. Okay, I see you're pronouncing. Is it ayahuasca? Ayahuasca. Thank you for that. Beautifully done. I love the way you put it. Ayahuasca. I knew it was in my brain, but I couldn't get it out 100. But yes, that's what I was talking about. You said, do these protections demand that you don't do certain things, like not getting intimate with your partner? Generally, no, right? There may be some that like you can't do it like right when you take it or you use it, right? So when it comes to Ilekis, I've discussed this before in the episode of Ilekis, you don't want to have these on when you are being intimate. Any other time, like once you finish the act and clean yourself up properly, put your Lakers on, no problem with that. You said, while I don't have any Lakers, I do wear evil eye amulets to ward off demonic energy. A lot of people do those types of things as well. The little blue evil eye, some people wear those. And there are different ways. I'm just talking about protection specifically within the Ifa tradition. And I'm by no means saying like this is the only way to protect yourself spiritually. There are other things that you can use, and people work with them and they do well for them. Oya is another Orisha that's kind of connected with their warrior strength. She is the goddess of storms, transformation, even so opens up those ancestral gateways. She offers fierce protection during major life transitions. I talked about that before. Whenever you're going through a transition, there's going to be upheaval. Even when it's good, you may be really excited to move something like that. You're going into a bigger house. You're moving to a different country. It's exciting. However, it causes stress, eustress, which is the good kind of stress. Nevertheless, it can cause upheavals in your life and make things shift. So you want to protect yourself during those particular times in your experience. So let's see. What are you guys saying here? Okay, oh, the storms. Okay. You putting up the storms. Absolutely. Storms of life. Need Shango just left court. Maybe, maybe not. And let me do say that, right? Because I was going to get to it after I finish with the guardian Orisha. Just because these Orisha are overseeing these particular areas, not necessarily the Orisha that's going to help you out in your particular situation at that specific time. Just depends on what's going on with you, what's going on energetically, right? And likewise, when you do protection or crochet, doesn't necessarily mean that you are going to feed one of the other orishas that I mentioned here. You will likely feed one orisha. Most of crochet is going to come, but you're also doing the sacrifices, the elbow, so that you can't activate the energy of an orisha during that process. Same thing I talked about last week with the prosperity of crochet. However, it you won't necessarily say all the time it's going to be this particular Orisha like Ogun or Shango, etc. It could be, possibly would be in a case that you're talking about, but it's not always going to be the case for everybody. You're saying Olokun or Ogun, the Orisha over money. Olokun oversees the deep oceans money. Ogun is a warrior spirit. So he said, oh, what about wave speeds during sex? If they're activated wave speeds, like I would not, if they have spiritual energy in them, they've been activated for a specific Orisha or spiritual force, it will be the same thing. Any Elekis, like no matter where you have them at, whether it's on your ankles, around your waist, around your neck, your wrist, wherever, like you want to take those off. Okay. So yeah, so Olokun, Aji, those are orishas of wealth, prosperity. Ogun is a warrior spirit, as I said before. So now let's get to some of the guardian energies that could be prominent when we're talking about dealing with the notion of protection. One more comment. I got to take real quick. You say, I see the name Oya everywhere. You may be linked to her. I don't know. Is she your head Orisha or something like that? Or she may be protecting you or with you right now. So, greetings, everybody who is coming in. Thank you all for showing up. Tiffany, you're asking about where does Orisha Yummy come into play? Iyami, I'm going to talk about them, but I did do a deeper dive into Iyami in a previous live stream, so check that out on my YouTube channel, okay? So, guardian Orishas, they shield, stabilize, and they preserve your well-being by preventing any harm from reaching you. So they stand guard, right? Whereas the other Orishas, the warrior Orishas, they battle for you. It's not to say that these won't, again, but that's kind of their primary or overriding purpose. Obviously, Eshu is going to come into play. I told you before I on the Eshu today. So Eshu is the divine messenger, the gatekeeper. He's going to guard those thresholds because he stands at the gateway, opens up the doors and stuff so that you can have those opportunities, closes the doors as well, right? For you sometimes, also for other people being able to come and attack you, all right? Because he's also about communication, he can expose any type of hidden enemies that you have as well. Fairness is also within his purview because he is the rewarder and the punisher, and he reveals deception, redirects harm before it can reach you, before it can attack you. Okay, Tiffany, she's saying that her cash app name is Oya Olokun. Okay. And you're saying, hello, Fatima. Here last year, I had a dream where I dreamed someone calling out Emoya, trying to find out more about my lineage. So I went to an owl for first reading when he mentioned Ogun. Right, but no mention of Emoya, so I'm a bit confused. You should add, if you still have contact with him, I would say ask him directly about Emoya. Because I don't know, maybe it just didn't come up in the reading, but it could still have significance to you if you're hearing Emoya's name. So I would ask directly if that's a concern that you want to address with him. So you said you want to slowly introduce yourself into Ifa, but you keep facing resistance. That happens a lot whenever you're trying to transition into something that is positive for you. It also could be a situation where your ancestors are keeping you away from the wrong people and you're perceiving that as resistance, but they're trying to redirect you to go into another direction and making sure that you're dealing with people who can actually help you along your journey. So that could be really, really layered. Getting to Iyami, I was just as Tiffany was asking about Iyami. So these are protectors, these are forces, the mothers, right? The terrestrial forces that are here, protectors of divine order, especially here in the material plane because they are terrestrial forces, as I said. So they are here to defend people who live in truth, in justice, in honor. Likewise, they are here to punish those who do not. Iyami's punishment can be really, really brutal, as I discussed before. So you definitely don't want to mess around and offend them. Check out the episode that I did on the live, as I mentioned earlier a few weeks ago, where we talked about that in more depth. But just as they can punish you or anybody who is not in right standing, they can likewise protect you if you are in right standing. So they're really, really great allies to have along your side when you're walking in an upright nature. Okay. You're saying, no, I don't know who is over my head. I just always see her name. It's a possibility that she is your head Orisha, or she could just be guarding you. Like, it's not always too like your head Orisha that is going to be prominent in your life at that particular time. It could be another Orisha that is working with you. So, there's some significance there. She may be calling your name. So you want to check that out. And Obatala is the last guardian energy that I want to mention here. So you're asking, definitely don't mind you asking, my dear. You said, where do you watch the replays? YouTube channel. Check out my YouTube channel at Asanee 44. I'm actually live on YouTube right now as well. I'm live in two places, IG and YouTube, but check me out there to catch the replay if you can't, finish the episode with us right now, or any other previous episodes as well. So Obatala is the last Orisha I want to discuss in this section. He is, of course, there to give us clarity, to give us wisdom, the higher level of consciousness and morality. He can help us to walk in morality, upright standing, right? He supports temperance, patience, peaceful living, ethical decision making, upright living. So Obatala can be very, very beneficial when you are dealing with, when protecting you, when you are dealing with situations where you're trying to make a decision. He can help you be patient. Take your time to get to that next level, because sometimes you walk into danger by making hasty decisions and going along with the wrong people or the circumstances causing you even more problems. Okay. Could you say, could my 15-year setback be just a part of my life journey, for experience, for something greater to come in my life? Possibly, but 15 years is a long time to have a setback. So I would check on it. I really would, because that's a long time. And 15 years is not like just a life setback, in my opinion, right? But you have to kind of gauge it to see, where have you gone in that 15-year period, right? Are you making progressive change? Those setbacks that you've experienced, are they helping you to move forward? Or do you feel like you're going, you're making one step forward and two step back, you're not progressing, you're not getting anywhere? Those are things you're going to have to gauge, but I would definitely check it out, because that's a long time in my opinion. Live in South Beach, Miami. How close? I'm in Arizona, so you have to put those coordinates in there into Google Maps. Who should use protection of Akose? All right. Understand, guys, just because you may be strong, even so fortified with your Lakeys and other stuff, you just need elbow, that does not mean that you're 100% covered. At the end of the day, everybody should use protection of Akose, all right? Because we all encounter negative spiritual forces from time to time. That is a reality of life, as I said before. That being said, there are certain individuals who are especially prone to attacks because of certain vulnerabilities that they have. Doesn't mean that they're weaker. It's just where you are in life. Let me catch a few questions here. You said, I already got that one. You said, I've been stuck on South Beach 11 of those 15 years. Got to check that out, my dear. I would definitely recommend reading or something like that. You're not complaining. The journey has been a life experience. Yeah, I mean, everything we go through is about lessons. It's not about like escaping every single challenge, right? Because some challenges are definitely meant there to strengthen us and make us wiser. So we all have to go through things in life. But if you are dealing with something of a persistent nature, you want to get that checked out. You are asking here, will you address a wound, a double? So I did. You may have come in late. I did talk about the adabo. So catch that at the earlier point in the live stream. And I will, if you have any questions, definitely reach out to me, okay? But we did talk about that. So, as I said before, certain people are more vulnerable. I'm going to go through a few of those groups, but definitely there are more beyond that. The more visible your purpose, the more you are going to be under attack. Guys, understand that. Like, I talk a lot about the chosen ones. Those are those generational healers, people who came here to resolve issues, heal their bloodline, even so to help other people to heal their bloodline. You're going to go through. That's just the reality. You're going to be exposed to so many more attacks when you have such a destiny, because obviously there are forces that don't want you to achieve that destiny. So they're going to try every means possible to stop you. You're just more vulnerable. That's the reality. Okay. I see your message. Definitely. So just check that out. And you got follow-up questions. We'll address that. Okay. All right. So, sorry, Instagram got a few questions. So you deserve much better, greater. That's why I feel it's a great strong hold on me somewhere. Absolutely. And that's a great point, Tiffany. We all deserve much greater and better. That's why we're having this conversation. You're not to be stuck in that situation. There are tools and devices to help you to overcome when you are dealing with issues or spiritual attacks or anything that's keeping you from achieving your destiny and from going towards greatness. You're asking, when taking Akose, if you don't drink liquor, can you use water to take it? That's a good question. I'm actually happy you asked because it didn't outline that. Okay, a lot of times you are going to be required to take dry gin with the Akose. There are some Akose that you don't have to take dry gin with. And if you have problems with using alcohol or something like that, maybe you just don't drink, or maybe you dealt with problems with alcoholism in the past, talk to your owl and let them know that I can't take something that I need to take dry gin with, right? Because even me, like, I can take it. I don't prefer it. I don't really like to drink, but there's some Akose that does require that. And so I know if it is going to be more powerful than maybe another type of Akose, I'll go ahead and get it. But I do prefer something that I can take with maybe like palm oil. Water, usually not going to be the case. It might be palm oil or something else. Usually though, dry gin is, what you're going to take it with. So if you do have a problem with it, it's not like you have to like drink a whole bottle or a whole shot glass of dry gin, right? Just enough to get the Akose down. Mother Phoenix, you're asking, you're in Arizona. Do I do personal reading? So we do Ifa divination, if that's what you're asking. We do spiritual investigation as well, astrology readings, etc. Our Adisa out of Nigeria, who is here with us, I hope he's still with us, he actually does the readings, the Ifa divination readings. I don't do them personally, if that's your question. You didn't know there was a community here in Arizona. There are other, Elays in Arizona as well. Not prolific, definitely not as prolific as like Atlanta and New York and those types of areas by any means. Not at all, not in the same way. So going back to the list though. Okay, Tiffany, you're asking, so do one break pour a bottle of dry gin or vodka at the front door of a new home? So it depends, right? I wouldn't just go and break a bottle, pour some bottle of dry gin, at my doorstep, because it probably wouldn't do any good. You have to know what you're doing, right? I know you're asking about a specific ritual, and definitely there are rituals that involve that, but you have to know what you're doing because it comes with more than just that. Usually you're going to sacrifice an animal if you want full-on protection. You should go through an owl for those types of things. It's not something that you just go out and say, I'm going to go sacrifice a chicken, put it in front of my door, and spray some dry gin. No, that's not how it's done, right? But there are protection elements that go along with you definitely pouring dry gin and things like that out for spiritual forces. But you need to know what you're doing. You said when you're taking a kosher, is there certain prayers? No, usually not, unless you're told specifically. But I don't think there's any kosher that I've ever taken where I had to say specific prayers or anything like that with the kosher or before taking it. Spiritual practitioners and healers, obviously you're more vulnerable because you're dealing with spiritual work. Two different dynamics going on here. One dynamic is you're trying to work on behalf of somebody else to attack their spiritual forces, and you don't necessarily have to be into Ifa specifically. It could be any type of spiritual work or what have you that you do. But because you're working on behalf of other people, you're going to be more vulnerable because those spiritual forces don't want those people help, right? So they're going to also work against you when you're trying to help somebody else out. Likewise, when you're into spiritual work, there are other spiritualists. Sometimes, the jealousy, the envy comes in, and they want to cause problems for you if they, see you doing well, or at least they think that you're doing well in whatever you're doing. They might try to bring spiritual attacks against you. So individuals that work in these particular areas, you are very much so vulnerable, okay? People who are just in public facing positions, entrepreneurs, leaders, etc. Visibility, of course, it attracts that admiration, but it also attracts envy, jealousy, hate, etc. So the more eyeballs that you have on you, the more so you probably want to take some Akose. Definitely deal with other protective measures so that you can, keep yourself safeguarded spiritually. Individuals who work in high risk jobs, police officers, military, security guards, correctional officers, people like that. Obviously, you're exposed to more threats, much more dangers, violence, etc. You want to protect yourself. Let me take a few more questions over here. As always, thank you for such an informative live. You're very welcome, my dear. Tiffany Akose is spiritual medicine, but I'm going to have you go back and look at the beginning of the live because I did discuss it in more depth as far as what Akose is. Plus, I have another live stream, a previous live stream rather, that I did on my channel where I really went deep into what Akose is exactly. So, do you know of anybody in Virginia I can work with that isn't Eva? I don't. Unfortunately, I don't. As I tell you guys all the time, I only work with 1 owl. Okay. Not saying that there are not other good ones. This is actually my personal owl. I recommend him because I have seen results from his work. He is an amazing person, like just his personality. I get along with him well. He is very knowledgeable in what he does. I say all that to say, like, there are definitely other people in that same boat. However, I have not personally vetted them, and I do not recommend people that I do not vet heavily because this is nothing to play with. This tradition is nothing to play with. I'm not trying to cause anybody any type of harm by telling you to go somewhere that I know nothing about, okay? Individuals who work in trauma environments as well, healthcare workers, EMT workers, nurses, etc. You're dealing a whole lot with sicknesses, social workers, even so, because it's not just about health there. You're dealing with a lot of social problems, so social illnesses. That's a lot of negative energy that you're dealing with on a day-to-day basis that can definitely attach itself to you. Okay, so you want to be very, very mindful of that to protect yourself. We already talked about their transition nature, especially people dealing with those transitions that are not so great. So, divorce, job loss, relocation, grief. Even so, when you're going through a spiritual awakening experience, because you're more prone to attacks, especially people who don't know what's going on during that time. Understand something, guys. Protection isn't just when things are going wrong, it's actually how you keep things right in your environment. So, based on some of the things that I went through, do any of you guys work in those type of environments, or are there other environments where you feel like, hey, I'm more exposed? Something that I didn't cover that you feel like should have been listed, as we just talked about. I'm gonna take a few more questions over here. You said you're learning not to be afraid to ask questions. Can you bear with me? Absolutely. This is a lot. I'm here to answer your questions. So I am with you, my dear. You gain knowledge about Ifa. I know it's solidified. That's the important part. Ask your questions, and make sure that you're getting the right information. And when I say that, I'm going to say, make sure it's resonating with your spirit. That's what I mean by right information. Something's not resonating with you, it's likely not for you. So we're going to transition into preparing to use protection Akose, some things that you need to be cautious about before you go down this path. All right, I talk about this all the time. Be careful when you share Akose, any type of spiritual medicine, whether it's for protection, love, prosperity, health, etc. Because most of the time is fixed specifically for you. It's not always a great idea to share it. Some things, especially children, cannot take. Even so, in some situations where people over a certain age can't take certain things. So you have to be very, very careful there about sharing things like this. Ask if you feel like you want to share it with somebody, and make sure you follow whatever instructions that you're given. All right. Don't ignore your taboos. Don't ignore instructions, feeling like, well, I'm protected now, right? I could just go and do whatever it is right now that I want to do because I'm protected, irrespective if they are taboo for me or not. That's not how a crochet works, as I've talked about before. Misusing a crochet, you're probably going to attract some additional problems into your life. Be careful about using multiple forms of protection of crochet, as I talked about before in the prosperity live. Protection of crochet or any type of a crochet, when you're mixing things up, you want to be careful that there are no contraindications, right? Because contraindications can cause you problems just as they would when you're dealing with medication, prescription medication. And what I mean by contraindications, for those of you who are not familiar with the medical terminology, this is when two things don't work together well. They can cause you sicknesses or other problems if you take them together. It might be at the same exact time or within the same window or time frame. Okay. So let me take a few questions here. Said you had one reading with the Shango priest in Houston, became a skeptic after she was in possession of my passport all of a sudden, and told me after the fact I got it back, worn and torn. Wow. Yeah, you should be. That's odd. She had me pick up my passport when she wasn't there in her plant pot. So very weird. My passport looked like it went through a lot in her possession. That is really odd. So I definitely agree. Thank you for sharing it, because that is scary. That something like that would happen. And as I always say, you got to be careful. It's not anybody that you can go and work with EFA with in general, but definitely not just going to get a crochet from them or any other type of protective mechanisms from them. Okay. a few more over here. So you're saying kosher is like a herbal prescription. It's more than an herbal prescription. It does contain herbs, but it can contain other constituents, high level spiritual remedies, spiritual forces, some plants that are really, really rare. You can't just go and pick them up like, a regular herb or what have you. Some plants that are actually spiritual in nature, depending on the type of a kosher it is. Animal parts may be used in it as well. It depends on what the kosher is for. Incantations are said over, so it's spiritual medicine. It is not herbal medicine. Okay, don't confuse that. And I do plan on talking about health of kosher, not next week, but the week after that, where I'm going to clarify the discrepancies between regular herbal remedies and spiritual medicine. Okay, so if you're feeling like confusion, disconnection, having some type of dreams or some chaos in your life, etc., after you're using a kosher, you want to be careful there because maybe you didn't apply it right. Maybe their kosher is blocked or just no longer active. And so you need to make sure you're checking with your owl and ensuring that everything is good with whatever you're using. Okay. Some form of a kosher can negatively affect anyone. Some of kosher, guys, protection of kosher, and this is very important. Some forms of protection of kosher are you use it, you can speak things into existence. You can speak a curse. You have to be really, really careful. Hopefully, when your owl gives you something like this, they're going to tell you. You got to be careful with the words that you use. You can even say negative things and speak ill against your family members and friends that you're not trying to harm. It's some powerful stuff. So you have to be careful. This is why I kept saying earlier, and I will continue to say it. You don't use a kosher for vengeful purposes, any type of a kosher. But when we're talking about protection of kosher, you don't just go and get this type of a kosher that I just mentioned and just say I'm going to speak negatively over people's lives to cause them harm. It's going to backfire on you, so don't think you won't experience negative consequences, right? Because if you're speaking negativity over somebody else's life unjustified, you are going to get that karma back on you. So you want to be careful, definitely, whenever you're using it. I talked about this before when we talked about the Orishas, but just to reiterate, sometimes Evo sacrifices are necessary whenever you are using a kosher, so that's why you will take it as well. Now I'm going to go through a few ways that a kosher can actually protect you, how it can work in your particular situation. It's going to look different for everybody, so it's not that every way I mentioned is going to be the same every time you take a kosher or whenever somebody else is taking a kosher. It really depends on what you need in your particular situation. Just like when I talked about the prosperity of kosher in the previous live stream. It's all about what you need at that particular time. That's why the owl will check to see what's going on with you, what type of a kosher that you need, whatever they prepare for you, you're going to use that and it's going to work properly on your behalf. Let's see. You're asking if someone wants to get a kosher Orisha icons through you, how would we receive them? Via mail, because everything that we present comes out of Nigeria. So we ship through DHL specifically. You're saying thank you for your time and answering our questions. This is very educational. I'm learning. You're very welcome, my dear Mother Phoenix Vision. So let's see. Now, most of kosher is going to work definitely to kind of just shield your overall aura from spiritual attacks, envy, hate, psychic interference. All of it kind of has that foundation to it. There is some, though, that can cause people to get confused when they are trying to attack you. So somebody actually could be in a space where they're getting ready to do some work against you, or they could be about to physically attack you, right? And they're going to do that, and they just all of a sudden become confused, like, what am I doing? Who am I doing it to, or what have you, right? They lose their focus, or they may not even be able to find your aura in the spiritual realm to do the negative spell work against you. That can happen as well. Juwan, you're saying you're in AZ as well. All right, Arizonians, definitely. We all out here in the desert. The heat. It's actually not as hot as I anticipated at this time of the year, but I'm not going to speak on that too soon because I know it will get really hot soon. But going back to the conversation, it can also prevent energetic leaks within you that typically would weaken your constitution or invite ongoing chaos into your life. Some people are just naturally weaker when it comes to certain aspects of life. And if you're that person, you may need something to just restore your constitution so that you're not constantly being drained energetically and you're having issues in the area where you're more open to attacks, etc. All right. It can actually help you to cut ties with toxic relationships, toxic people, predatory dealings, or unsafe environments. You just know, like, this is not right for me. I need to leave this situation alone. The protection of Akose can work in that way. Like you may be about to go and sign a contract, make some kind of deal with somebody, and then you just have this knowing, this feeling like this is just not for me. Exactly. Yes, Jawan, I am absolutely here, and I'm in Goodyear, to be exact. Another way it works, and a lot for your greetings to everybody who is coming in. Another way it works is through emotional and mental fortification for you as well. All right, it can cause you to be okay and not get so emotionally overwhelmed or anxious. Like if you're a fearful person or you just went through some kind of trauma, betrayal, instability, grief, loss, crisis, etc. Because that can cause some dangerous situations for you if you are in that state. And so you can absolutely take some protection of Akose to help you to calm down when you're in those types of circumstances. It can also strengthen your level of discernment. Most protection of Akose is going to act in this regard to strengthen your ability to discern when you are dealing with some hidden threats or manipulation or something of that nature. Let's see. Teddy, you're saying you are in the ATL. This is what you've been looking for. You're very, very welcome. Very welcome. Let's see. It can strengthen that as well as far as your discernment. Like I said, most of it is going to work that way to help you to discern and say, this is just not the right direction for me. It can help you to set and maintain firmer boundaries. I talked about this before for individuals who have issues in this area where they can't really maintain boundaries as they desire to do so. All right. Keep you from, people or situations that you find it difficult sometimes to get away from. The protection of Akose will work to help you in that area. Excuse me for one moment, guys. Okay, sorry about that. It helps to also to support it supports clear, calm thinking whenever you're in high stress situations, especially when you're under some type of pressure or attack. This actually happened to me like a few weeks ago. I was using this Akose for protection. I frequently use protection Akose. And I was in a situation where this guy was literally using security guard, an armed security guard at that. He was like yelling at me because I forgot to remove the what do you call it? The one that you can spray, like was it mace or something like that, I think, from my purse because I was going into a federal building. And so he was yelling and screaming and stuff like that. And I was just absolutely able to maintain my calm at that moment, which normally I would not have been able to do so in such a situation. I would have been word for word with this individual. But it was like, I wasn't even noticing that this was going on at the time that it was going on. And I just kept my calm And I just, stayed in a space where it's like, okay, it just didn't bother me at that moment. So I did what I had to do, left, kept on moving. And then, like, maybe about 20, 30 minutes after it happened, I was upset. I was so angry, which normally, knowing me, I would have gotten that angry in the moment because I do that, and I would have probably went off, and I probably would have went to jail that day. But I didn't, because I was just, the coach just had me in the space, and I, like, as soon as I started to get mad, I called out this up, and I'm like, oh my God, this just happened to me. What can I do? Because I was ready to do something. And he was just like, calm down. You wasn't in the wrong or what have you. Whatever's going to happen to him is going to happen to him based on what, you were doing, what he was doing rather in that circumstance. But, you just stay calm. You did the right thing, because it could have caused so many problems. I probably could have even got shot if I had to went off like I normally would have went off back in the day, because he was armed. It wasn't like just somebody with a nightstick. Even there, he could have hit me with it. But I know me, and I was like, oh God, this Akose really worked in this circumstance, because I would have went off. You're saying Mother Phoenix Queen. I'm in Queen Creek, but will be in Casa Grande. Okay. Beautiful, beautiful. I think you kind of far from me though, because I'm all the way out in Goodyear. Alrighty, so, and I'm not from, for those of you all who are in Arizona right here, I'm not from right now, really. I'm not from Arizona, but I've been here for 6 years, I think. I think August of this year will make 6 years for me. So yeah. Also, I did go through this already, right? So physical safeguards as well. So it does help with that. Orisha Boomy X, yeah, high stress situations really set me off. Yes, yes, yes. I'm a child of Ogun and true to form. Whew, I can get mad quickly. So I was very, very happy that protection of Akose saved me in that instance, because I probably wouldn't be sitting here talking to you guys right now if it didn't. But going back, so it can also protect you against physical attacks and physical threats. So it's not just all in the spiritual realm, right? So there's actually crochet and devices that you can use to protect you whenever you may be against gunfire, a blade, sharp object, somebody trying to stab you with a knife or something like that, somebody trying to physically assault you. There are things that you can use so they cannot harm you in that moment. Maybe it just blocks the whole device as a whole, or it just, if it comes at you, it just doesn't penetrate you for whatever reason. It could look like a kind of freak situation for some people, but it's actually the Akose protecting you. Okay, redirects or diverts your path, right, whenever you are headed into danger. That's very important as well. I was watching this video this weekend on YouTube. It was like a compilation video of like these freak situations that occurred, and some people did get hurt, some people didn't, thankfully. But a lot of those situations where I saw the people didn't get harmed, I was thinking, maybe they were using something for protection, because a lot of it was actually out in like some of the Asian countries as well, where they use a whole lot of protection devices and things of that nature too. And so sometimes when you do see those scenarios like that, it's actually those people using protective measures to keep them out of harm's way. Some of it is just natural for sure, or maybe the people are prayed up, etc. I'm not saying that prayer doesn't work, because it does, but there's also situations where you can take Akose, use amulets, charms, etc., to provide that extra protection like we're talking about today. All right. It can also cause you to just feel out of place, right? When you are in a situation or a circumstance where you don't need to be, you feel uncomfortable, and you're just like, I got to get out of here. Something is not right in this scenario. So I need to, go, and you leave that circumstance, and something else could happen, in your absence. So many different scenarios could happen there. It can also shield you in legal battles, legal issues, family conflict, public scrutiny. Again, especially when we're talking about the legal situation, this is not something that you do, right? To just you go and do whatever you want to do, and then you take some protection and crochet, and you get out of that legal trouble. That's not how it works. So you definitely got to see what's going on with it. It can lighten your burdens, even if you are at fault or what have you. But this is again, it's not something that you just go and take because you're trying to, get away from what you've done wrongfully. Okay. Let me take another question. You're saying, how would physical protection apply to a risky sporting scenario? Same way, right? So if you're doing like, the boxing, the skating, things like that, it protects you physically. So if something happens, you fall, maybe you don't break something, right? It can protect you in so many different ways. But that's a good question as well. If you are, let me see. It can keep those scenarios from happening, similar to like I was saying with the physical attacks and things like that, right? It just keep you out of harm's way, and it can definitely look miraculous. You might look up and like, oh my God, like he should have failed, or he should have cracked his head open. Even if you fall, maybe you don't harm yourself. There are just so many different scenarios and how that can work. It can also protect you astrally in that dream space. So some people tend to get a lot more attacks whenever they're sleeping. They may have nightmares or just be restless or what have you, because there are evil forces that are surrounding them that are trying to cause them problems. And the Akose, the protection of Akose, can help you there. So, guys, have you all used any type of protection of crochet before? Or, is this your first time? Some of you already said it's your first time, but for those of you coming in, let me know if you've had any experiences with it. I'm going to deal with the pre-episode survey results in just a moment, because you guys did do that on YouTube. We got a few more sections to go through, but I did want to, just stop here and go through those results so that we can talk about some of the concerns that you had if we haven't addressed them yet. Give me 1 second, guys. So. My throat is getting dry. I'm talking a lot today, going over my normal hour episode. So getting back to it, 31% of you all said that you use protection tools, but still feel a little bit vulnerable. And I'm going to address a little bit of that shortly. 15% of you all said that you think that you're under attack, but you're not sure what to do. So I've talked about some of those elements already. Protection of crochet definitely could be the way for you. You always want to check. So we talked about that before. A lot of people are asking, well, how do I know what to do? Ifa divination, for those of you all who are just joining, or either spiritual investigation. Those are some great tools to use there. 23% of you all said that you wanted to strengthen your protection, but you don't know how. We just kind of discussed that in depth. Hold on. Am I going? Okay, yes. Sorry. And then 31% of you all said that you've heard about a use of crochet, but you wanted to know more about how it worked. So thank you all again for answering those questions, and I think we've covered a lot of ground there. I do want to cover a few more things that we have left in this particular area. So after you take the Akose, how do you maintain yourself? Talk about some other concerns that some people had. You guys asked a lot of questions. This is why this is so long too. Definitely stay grounded, right? Remain humble. Don't start taking the crochet and feel like you're going to just walk up on somebody because you protected now, right? So, you can't harm me because I took this crochet, and, you can't even penetrate with me with a bullet, for instance, and you're going to just go and walk up on people purposely to try to offend them. That's not what it's about, all right? Don't walk into conflict. Continue to honor your Orishas and every other thing that you're doing, all right? Avoid being paranoid or hyper vigilant. All right. You don't want to get into a space of fear or obsession because, as I said before, this is not what protection is about. Protection of Akose or any other form of protection work when it comes to the Ifa tradition. It's not about paranoia. It's not about fear and things like that. Instead, it's just about you getting into alignment so that you are protected and you don't have to worry about those things. Also, protection of Akose. Usually, we talk about this tailored for one person. You shouldn't be sharing it or transferring it to anybody else. Don't go out bragging. Okay, we talk about this all the time. I always talk about oversharing. I'm hyper vigilant about that. Don't go out there bragging all over social media or even in your personal life. I just got this protection of Akose. Can't nobody bother me. You can't shoot me. You can't stab me. No, like we don't do that type of thing either because you're just inviting in more spiritual attacks. Understand, like the same way that somebody made this a Akose for you, there's somebody out there that knows how to do that and even more, right? So you don't want to invite unnecessary evil into your path. Okay. So I do want to get to this section, guys. So I answered most of the questions throughout. However, there were some questions that didn't quite fit in the areas that I'd already outlined as far as the categories go. And then some of them didn't necessarily even fit within the topic itself, but they still were really, really great questions, and I wanted to answer them. So again, thank you all for the questions that you asked. So one of the questions was, is there a case where protection from Ifa and Olódùmarè is not enough? So understand that Olódùmarè, that's the creative force, provides us with so many different tools and resources. That's where the protection of Akose comes from, to help us to stay safe, to stay, secure in our day-to-day lives. While he doesn't directly engage in that process of protection for the most part, every form of protection comes from Olódùmarè. So there would not be a case where he could not protect you through some device. It's not a matter of it's not available. The question was kind of asked in conjunction with Ifa and Olódùmarè. Ifa being the system, or also referring to Orunmila, which is the Orisha of wisdom that knows about our destinies and things like that. We go to Ifa to get that knowledge of what we need to be protected from and how to best protect ourselves. That's how it goes. How do you know when Ifa is present and protecting you? So, again, like I said before, every form of just protection comes from Olódùmarè, comes from that benevolent, good aspect of the creative force, all right? Olódùmarè is always with you. Your Ori, that's your divine Ashe that comes from the protective force, the creative force, rather, Olódùmarè. So anytime that you experience protection, know that it comes from Olódùmarè, okay? And the question was asked Ifa specifically, so I did want to address that part of it. Understanding that Ifa serves as one form of protection in the system. So if you're saying Ifa, if the question was about Ifa as the system, the whole system is designed for protection, as I've talked about through and through the live screen. If you're talking about Ifa as in Orunmila, the Orisha of wisdom, the protection through Orunmila will come through wisdom, right? You having the wisdom to make better decisions in your life. That's why it's very good to get that Orisha, the hand of Ifa, rather, which would be reserved unto Orunmila. Therein, you can make better decisions on a day-to-day basis. You just have knowledge and wisdom. You know not to go down this path. You know not to do this, etc. That type of thing. So that's one of the ways, the primary way that Ifa or Orunmila himself is going to protect you, right? Understand though, you can distance yourself from Olódùmarè's overall protection, right? Through being misaligned, as I've talked about several times throughout the live stream. Also, other people can work against you, even when you are walking in alignment I've already said that before. When you're doing the right thing, you're still attracting negativity because there are evil forces that want you out of alignment. There are people who are jealous of you, who envy you, and they don't want you to have good things in your life. So there's always forces at play, always negativity at play that is going to be working against you. So you always need to do something to protect yourself. This is why Olódùmarè put forth the tools, the Ebo, the protection tools, the Akose, etc., for us to be able to live in alignment and to keep ourselves safe. Very, very, so much very similar to like you get a house or you live in an apartment, wherever you live, doesn't really matter where it is. You put up protective measures so that you're safeguarded in that space. It's the same notion there. Okay. Somebody asked, what about the black statue that your Baba holds at the temple to protect you from evil? So this is most likely an Iroke. That's what I think that they're talking about. All right. And I consulted our this on this, and this is what he said. It's probably the Iroke that they hold in their hand. All right. This is basically a sound maker used to make noise to invoke spirits when they're doing different prayers, incantations, reciting the Odu, etc. So I think that's what you meant by that. If not, definitely feel free to DM me. How would you describe Ifa to someone who doesn't know about it? It's kind of not within the scope of the topic, but very, very beautiful question. So I definitely wanted to address it here. Ifa is basically the traditional Yoruba system of wisdom divination. It's both a way of life that helps people align with their destiny, live in harmony, and of course maintain protection, as we talked about before. Ifa itself, as I've said, is the system. It's about how you live in harmony with yourself, with others, with the environment, with the spiritual realm. Okay. Orunmila is the Orisha of destiny, Orisha wisdom that helps us to align with our destiny through enlightenment, through hidden wisdom, knowledge, etc. By when we get those Ifa readings, that's what it's all about. Every Ifa divination is about your destiny, teaches you or tells you more and more about your destined path. What about soaps? I'm getting a question over here. Soaps are Akose, right? That's a form of Akose. So Akose can come, and thank you for that question too, because I don't think I put it in here. So, because I've addressed it in other episodes too about Akose, but Akose can come in so many different forms. Soaps, powders, very, very common. Oils, tinctures, etc., teas, so forth and so on. So any type of soap that is consecrated for this purpose is Akose, regardless of what you use it for. It could be used to like remove negativity and things like that, to clear your energy. It can be used to attract certain things to you, etc., depending on what the purpose of it is for. So this is the last section, you guys. I do want to talk about sustaining your spiritual protections. If you have any lingering questions, feel free to go ahead and put them in the chat window so we can get through them as we transition. Good character. I'm going to say this. I always talk about, walking in Iwa Peli. Gentle character, guys. That's the best way for you to maintain your spiritual protection. It's like that lock on the door. As I said before, right? You always want to lock your door. You leave that door unlocked. That's by you not walking in good character. You not maintaining your taboos and things like that. Just being an overall good person, living in harmony with your environment, with yourself, with other people. You are going to be able to maintain that protection at a much, much higher level. All right. Protection Akose. Understand this is not a one-time fix. All right. It can lose its potency over time. Sometimes it's only good for a certain amount of time. So definitely check on that whenever you're working with Akose. Understand energy shifts. Spiritual threats are constantly evolving. Somebody could be attacking you today, another person attacking you tomorrow in a completely different way. So it's not like a panaika where you just take it everything good done over with. All right. Staying aligned also requires regular spiritual work. So your elbow is maintaining those taboos, consistently just engaging in your spiritual practices. If you have an icon, Orisha icon or what have you, a pot, etc., you still want to work with those devices. The protection of crochet is not to say you don't have to do or you shouldn't do any of those things anymore. Okay. You walk in alignment, you use the crochet, you basically reinforcing that energetic shield. You're safeguarding yourself. You're building a fortress, as we talked about before. You're strengthening your aura. All right. Now, I do have a question here that I want to get to. We only have one. Yes, one. So Olódùmarè does not get directly involved in human affairs, unlike Abraham faith. So this is what most people, the belief that most people adhere to, because think about Olódùmarè is like a CEO, right? Like of a major corporation. Right? The CEO doesn't, because that's pretty much the function. That's the highest level function, right? The CEO doesn't go and get involved in the day-to-day dealings of the, employees or what have you. There's a tiered approach or hierarchy where you have managers, you have your executive suite, you have your middle managers, and then you have your lower level managers, your supervisors, et cetera, that are going to oversee different departments, different categories of people. Everybody at their organization is not going to go directly to the CEO every time they need something, right? Only the people that are in direct line under the CEO, that's when that happens. It's the same type of concept that operates in the spiritual realm, right? And to give an African-based example there, think about it as like a kingship or rulership, right? And then you have your different tiers, your chieftaincies, and so forth and so on down the level, the road, or what have you. Okay, the same way, Olódùmarè created the Orishas to handle different aspects of life and other spiritual forces as well. So we have the ancestors, the Egbe. Egbe are Orishas, but kind of a different class of Orisha. You have different levels or different tiers of forces that are going to operate in different capacities, right? So they are all part of Olódùmarè. So to say that Olódùmarè doesn't directly get involved, not as the aspect of the divine creator, the supreme being, no. But anytime that an Orisha or any other force gets involved in your life, that's Olódùmarè, because that's the essence, that's the ashe of Olódùmarè, right? That's one aspect of Olódùmarè working in your life. So that's why I say it's a little bit more to it than just saying, no, Olódùmarè, doesn't get directly involved in human affairs, because that spirit, that force absolutely does, but not in the form of like coming directly as that supreme creative force in the various aspects of itself. It does, for sure. Aside you're saying, yes, like delegates, right? That's how they operate, like the Orishas and the other forces. They operate in the form of delegates, but they definitely carry the divine aspects of Olódùmarè. So guys, if you do need some protection work, if you want to explore our ether-based reading services or anything else that we have to offer, you can definitely catch us at Asanee44.com. That's the website where we have everything that we have listed to offer. Lots of great information there. So check us out there. You can DM me directly on IG at Asanee44 if you have additional questions. Next week, as I've said earlier, I do plan on covering Love Akose, so I'm going to put out those fillers for you guys to ask questions, because I've been getting a whole lot of questions about this over time. And so we're going to really dig into this one, because this Akose is a little bit different than the other forms, because now you're involving somebody else's energy along with yours. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and close out. It has been so beautiful, guys. Ashe. Please have a very blessed and beautiful day and beyond.